Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Well, I have to say, I'm going to blow a little smoke at you guys because in the 30 years that I've been on either the House or the Senate Armed Services Committee, I've never seen a group of nominees come in more qualified than you four. And I think we're going to turn this corner now because we have the right people at the helm. I want to ask one question, the same question of all four of you, because one of our problems, when I was trying to explain to people over the last 8 years what's happening to our military, the threat that we're facing, and different than any kind of threat we've ever faced before. I didn't have the credibility to sell that. But when the uniforms start talking about it, then that makes a big difference. And so we've had that happen, and I'm very proud of them to tell the unvarnished truth about the problems we have. When General Allen testified before this committee that only a third of our brigade combat teams were working or ready, a fourth of our air brigades and half of our divisions were ready, and then General Dunford said, and this to this committee, it's pretty shocking. He said, if we don't address this dynamic and with sustained, sufficient, and predictable funding over the course of several years, we will lose our qualitative and quantitative competitive advantage. That's a pretty shocking statement. So I'd like to ask two questions of each one of you, just yes or no questions. One, do you agree with the statements by Generals Allen and Dunford?
Yes. Yes. Sir.
Yes. Yes.
And secondly, the question I have is, would you be just as straightforward and honest about very uncomfortable subjects such as the threat that we're facing as these uniforms?
Yes, sir.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I believe you will, too. And it's not just the uniforms are important, but the secretaries are important. And so I have very much of a concern about that. General, Dr. Esfert, General Milley wrote, talking about the go of the sustained readiness. He said that the go of Army's sustained readiness model is to have 66% of, and this is not to maintain because we're not there now, but to achieve 66% of the force in a combat-ready status at any moment by the year 2023. Now, would you say that under this model, do you think that we are on track to reach that goal?
Senator, my understanding is that the Army is on track to reach that goal. My personal view is that's not fast enough.
Yeah.
And so if confirmed, I would like to look at ways, working with the chief and senior Army leaders, to find if there are ways to accelerate that, particularly given the challenges we face right now in the international scene.
Yeah, well, let me also compliment you because the answer you gave to Senator Reed's questions, talking about what our acquisition problems are and a definitive answer on how to address that, I thought was a very good answer. Mr. Wilkie, I remember so well, the guy that has always been a real hero to me was Jesse Helms. And I remember going to his funeral. You and I sat next to each other, and we talked about that. And so that was, I would say to my friend Senator Tillis, that's one of the main things that I look at when I look at you and your extensive service that you've had in the past. I'm grateful to know that you understand our readiness challenge. I chair the Readiness Committee, and I've been very concerned about where we are today. And as in terms of your top priority going forward, how has our budget cuts in the BCA affected our military readiness capacity and capabilities? It's important to answer this question now because of what we're in the midst of and the debate that's going on today.
Yeah. Well, Senator, if we start from the premise that we have never faced the breadth of the strategic challenges that we have now, that leads you to only one answer, that unless the Department of Defense has a steady and understandable stream of financing to plan for the years ahead, as any other business would have, then it will not be capable of playing in a field where we continue to have an unfair advantage over our adversary.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a good answer, but it's unfortunate. I am concerned, though, about a statement that was made or a fact that is out there and we don't seem to talk about, and that is only about a quarter of today's 17 to 24-year-olds are eligible for military service. Of that population, even a smaller number are interested in enlisting or commissioning. Now, I was a product of the draft, so I'd like to see what are some of the innovative opportunities we have to expand that pool. What are some of the options we have out there?
So it is, as you say, it's a society-wide problem. What I don't believe the department has done as we have moved into the 21st century is adopt the modes of information collection that America's young people have. We have not mastered social media. We have not mastered something that I consider to be fundamental, and that is online recruiting across the country. We've also had situations in the last 15 to 20 years where the first experience that our youth at one time had with the military, if they were not from a community tied to an installation, was junior ROTC. We are losing those units across the country. Now, obviously, in a time of budget crunching, that's probably low on the list. But if you are looking at the long term, if you're looking at trying to change the perception of young Americans, those kinds of interactions and the ability of the government through the department to adapt to the way young people think is vital, or we will never get caught up.
Yeah, my time has expired, but that's a great answer. I appreciate that very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.